Welcome back to this Money Control live stream. You're watching Closing Bell with me, Nandita Khemka, and my colleague.
Hello there, I am Yatin Mota.
Hi Yatin, it's been last 24 hours have been extremely difficult, not just in terms of markets, of course, with what's unfolding across the line of control, the mindless escalation by Pakistan, and of course, our armed forces defending the sovereignty of the nation, tough times.
Correct.
Of course, we don't have too many details. We are awaiting the MEA briefing that happens at 5:30 p.m. later this evening. And that's when we will get to know, or we'll have more clarity on Operation Sindoor and how things have been really unfolding. Correct. When it comes to the border tensions. But the tremors were felt on Dalal Street as well, but they weren't as intense as one would have thought. It is a 1% cut on the index, but we've managed to defend the 24,000 mark. I think very important, because yesterday, when I checked the GIFT Nifty futures, once the tensions were escalating in the evening, the GIFT Nifty was down 500 points,
Correct.
in excess of 500 points. So that was the kind of, the intensity of sell-off on the GIFT Nifty. But in the morning today, we started off, down by 200 points or so. We did recover slightly, but we've ended lower by about 265 points or thereabouts. But the important point is that the mid-cap index and the small-cap index, both these, the broader end of the market, so to say, have clawed back very smartly. The breadth of the market that was extremely poor at the start of the session has recovered, and it was just about 1:2, the NSE advanced decline ratio. The mid-cap index almost broke out in the green, right? It ended extremely flat. Bank Nifty was down 1.5%. Most of the sectors were down, but the Nifty PSU Bank Index, Yatin, was up 1.5%. And of course, one would have expected defense names to do well, and that's what happened. Defense, shipbuilding, these were some of the stocks that managed to buck the trend. But I think even on a weekly basis, we have snapped out of a 3-week gaining streak. For the week, the Nifty Sensex are down 1%. The Nifty Bank Index is down 3% for the week. The VIX continues to surge, another 3% uptick on the fear gauge, the India VIX index. But Yatin, any movers that stood out?
Yeah, so I think Nandita, at the fag end of the markets, a lot of improvement in the breadth. Last 1 hour of trade saw some good short covering as well as recovery in mid caps. Noteworthy stocks, SBI, Yes Bank, both of them closed nearly at the day's high. Yes Bank 10% after ET reported that there is a board meeting in which SBI might take decision to sell 20% stake in Yes Bank to one of the Japanese major, Sumitomo Mitsui Corporation. Now, post this news reports, good movement there. Union Bank, reacting to the numbers, was up 6%. Wellspun Living, Craftsman Automation, all of these stocks were doing well. What was not doing well is Sonata Software. After a weak set of numbers, that stock continues to be lower. MCX, and the margins gave a negative surprise, post which it was one of the top F&O losers, down 5.5%. Raymond was down, 5.5%. But clearly the highlight of the day, as well as top traded counters, were the defense names. Mazgaon Dock turnover almost 3,000 crores in the cash markets, 4% higher for that stock. And BDL and BEL, both of these stocks are in focus because they make, one of the best defense systems, best missile systems, best radar systems, probably which have worked very well in defending India's, fight against terrorism as well as counterattacks from Pakistan. So both of these stocks, also top traded counters, 4 to 5% higher for all of these stocks.
Of course, defense clearly bucking the trend, defense and shipbuilding stocks. But let's understand, how to read into the situation now.
Absolutely.
We don't have a lot of details, but to get a sense of how to read into the situation, let's bring on board Bodhisattva Ganguly, Group Consulting Editor at Network 18, joining us. Bodhi, lovely to be chatting with you again this evening. But markets aside, all eyes are on the border. We are awaiting the MEA briefing at 5:30 p.m. where we, the MEA will be sharing details on Operation Sindoor. But how should one really look at the overall situation given the mindless escalation by Pakistan? Would you expect, some bit of de-escalation coming in over the weekend, given the fact that, there have been calls from across the globe for both India and Pakistan to de-escalate this situation? What can we expect here on? What is your sense?
Yeah, so I think it was another long night yesterday because of the the drone attacks and then the subsequent response by India. So that's really the $1 million or the $1 billion question as to where there's de-escalation. See, I think a couple of things are becoming very clear. India's strategy is really very different from earlier reactions to terrorist attacks. because I mean it's obviously very different from 2008 or 2001 and so on. I think India is not interested in giving the Pakistan in particular, General Asim Munir, an off ramp. It is up to Pakistan to de-escalate if they want to. Um, that's really the messaging from India. And I think the other thing which India I think is doing is to really set the goalposts and expectations for Pakistan, and sort of the fact is that the Indian economy is 11 times larger than Pakistan, right? I mean the gap between the economies have grown. Indian economy is growing at over 6%. I mean 6.3 to 6.8 if you depend on growth rates. Pakistan's growth rate is sub 3%. Right, it is going for an emergency loan to the IMF, which India used to do once upon a time in the 1980s or early 90s. Right, in fact, the loan discussion is today, and let's see if the IMF, agrees to give that loan. So I think India is setting or resetting the rules of the game as far as it's making very clear to Pakistan that there are heavy costs in attacking a country which is much larger and are much more powerful than your own. I mean, most countries don't do that, and it's kind of crazy what the Pakistanis do. But I think it's making that expectation clear that if you do that, there will be heavy consequences. Now, and I think the leadership is prepared, even if there is some repercussion in the stock market, and if the markets fall for a couple of days, as you said, the VIX index has gone up and so on and so forth. These are costs which which the nation is prepared to bear in the wider wider context or in the wider given. But yes, so that's one part of it. I think the Pakistan's expectations of Pakistan, the rules of engagement, rules of behavior are being set, and they're different from what had been prevalent all this while. And I think Pakistan is still getting to grips with this. I think there is Asim Munir's Punjabi ego is probably coming in the way, in realizing. But yeah, but so that is one. The other, just before you come to your next question, coming to the point on de-escalation. See, it's not very clear who will also de-escalate, because the messaging from the US seems to be a little bit confused, right? Because JD Vance gave an interview essentially where he's saying it's not our business. I mean, what can we do? Right. That reflects and whereas Marco Rubio, who's the foreign secretary, has spoken to Foreign Minister Jaishankar. He's also spoken to the Pakistani Prime Minister yesterday. So he has called for de-escalation. Now, the previous de-escalation efforts has eventually been done in the US in the context of the Kargil war. It was actually Bill Clinton who in fact told Nawaz Sharif to back down and to withdraw from those hills which the Pakistani army had seized. But it's not clear whether this current US administration is that interested. Vance is reflecting a very traditional MAGA sort of understanding, whereas the US doesn't want to get involved in global matters. Right? They see so that's their ideological position. Rubio is a much more traditional kind of Republican, and he is trying to play some kind of a role. So yes, I mean the point is that de-escalation is traditionally in the case of to put it another way, talking sense into Pakistan has sometimes been done by outside powers, most notably the US. It's not clear what's going to happen now. So yeah, so that would be my rather long answer to your question.
Yeah. Bodhi sir, Yadin also joining in the conversation. When you talk about escalation or de-escalation, the preparedness of Indian armed forces as well as Indian civil defense has been, scaling up day by day. We had a 3 p.m. siren drill in Delhi today. Today we also had pharma companies, medical, personnels, as well as now, there are been orders given by district collectors that, food grain stocks should be reported within 3 days and no hoarding should be done. So the kind of preparedness India is showing when it comes to, drills, when it comes to stocking pharmaceuticals or essential commodities, it seems that we are preparing for war or, probably playing a psychological game. What do you make of this? Because in my lifetime, I have never seen a blackout situation. I have never seen the kind of drills that we are now conducting across border states, capital, metros, everywhere.
Yeah, so I remember, I vaguely remember the blackout from. Okay, I'm slightly embarrassing myself. Give away my rather ancient vintage. I remember blackouts from the '71 war very vaguely. I was a very young kid, but I just about vaguely remember them. I don't really have much recollection. But that apart, yes. But for most people, it is a completely new experience. Certainly, I would say that there is also an instruction that territorial army, the army chief can call up, those who are enlisted in the territorial army. That's the equivalent of, let's say, the National Guard or the Reserve in the US. So it shows that India is prepared to go in, for the long haul. Now, actually, if Pakistan is what is India saying? It is saying that it is up to Pakistan to stop. If Pakistan stops the drone attacks, because I think Wednesday night and Thursday night they tried fairly extensive drone attacks on Indian facilities, which were thwarted by our air defense system. If they stop doing that, then India is saying that then this matter can end, right? But if it doesn't, and if it keeps on doing that, then India will keep on responding. It will keep on striking terror targets inside Pakistan. So what India is saying that there is, I mean, it's sort of very difficult to see where this will end and whether this will lead to ground operations. Because Pakistan is also continuing the shelling across the border. And at some stage, India has responded with counterfire, but it could take stronger steps. I'm sure those options are there. I don't think that's India's preferred option, but because there is also the border with China and so on and so forth. But it's not. But as you say, it could be partly psychological, but it's also to send a very clear message to Pakistan that we are prepared for the long haul, if need be, if necessary. And it is up to Pakistan to de-escalate the situation. It's not up to India to escalate the situation. In fact, as Indian diplomats have said, and as the Indian government has also said, the original escalation was the Pahalgam terrorist attack. So that was the first escalation.
Absolutely.
So Pakistan needs to dismantle the infrastructure of terror. Right. You also seen the visual after the Tuesday night, after Operation Sindhu, the Tuesday night attack. There was a noted militant and Pakistani soldiers at the funeral of many of the people who were killed in these, in that attack. So yeah, I mean, India is resetting the rules of the game as it's a much bigger economy, much bigger country, and Pakistan will have to behave in a certain manner. Pakistanis, at least not all Pakistanis, but the military establishment, I think, are having a lot of psychological difficulty in reconciling themselves because they have fantasies that they are somehow equal with India or equal to India. They can fight. If you have listened to Asim Muni's speech, I mean, these are extraordinary speeches, right? I mean, most of us, I mean, what do we think about? I mean, we might think about, whatever, what is the market looking like? How are our, mutual fund holdings doing? Things like that. What will increments be like? What will ESOPs be like? That kind of stuff. Where he's talking about the two-nation theory. Right, and if you listen to that speech, which could have been one of the that infamous speech which was given 10 days back, which the Minister of External Affairs said is one of the could have instigated the attack in Pahalgam. So it's these are very comprehensive measures that India is prepared for a confrontation that will last for some time. But what that sometime is, will the rest of the world, will the US will intervene in what manner? And adding to the uncertainty, I said, is the very changed ideological stance of the current US administration when it comes to, getting involved in foreign matters. So that's also an unknown factor here, a complicating factor here.
Bodhi, but Pakistan would need external support if they are looking to escalate this situation further. And for that, they would, of course, be banking on the bailout package from IMF. But do you think it could now turn against them, or it would not be in their favor, given the kind of escalation they have done?
So I think the IMF
India is going to make a case.
Today. Yeah, India will, I'm sure, will make a case. But the thing is, the thing is that somebody will have to back India to stop the loan to Pakistan. So I'm not very sure whether an announcement will come tonight or not. Right? China will surely support Pakistan. Right? China is regards Pakistan as a strategic ally. So someone will have to, and that someone is the US and or some of the other Western powers, will have to support India to block the IMF. The other thing which India is doing is to get Pakistan back on the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, that grey list, right? The kind of sanction for supporting terrorism. And there are specific demands. So again, but that again depends on how much other countries support India. So China will certainly support Pakistan. They made that very clear.
They've made that very clear.
So let's see. I think this will play out.
Bodhi, I have an important question, from the capital market standpoint, viewers who are watching us. You have run India's successful business newspaper, newsrooms. You have very vast experience as a journalist. When it comes to misinformation, yesterday we had so much of confusion, watching TV, watching social media. Many things, came out and people started deleting the tweets, people started retracting news reports. In a situation like this where misreporting usually happens in, in a matter of time, things change, scenarios change. Somebody yesterday said that, Karachi port has been attacked by Indian Navy. Nothing of that sort got reported, today morning. So in a scenario wherein, there is a lot of misinformation, especially on social media, how should an individual, access or analyze the situation? Because, we have seen the panic in the first half today, second half we saw recovery, because probably a lot of market participants, try to make sure that misinformation gets reconciled. So, as a journalist, as a newsroom, what should one look at, especially the millennials or the new market participants? How do you look at the situation, and what should you do and not do when it comes to news reading in such situations?
No, so Yatin, this is the new world in which we're living in, where social media is predominant, and there are handles and all that. So, quite frankly, I must say the PIB has done a very good job in doing a fact check of a lot of the misinformation which is coming from the Pakistani side, and which is essentially, they would show some forest fire somewhere or some unrelated incident as an attack on an Indian airbase or something. So that's being debunked authentically. But I think it would, millennials would quite frankly have to learn the hard way. I mean, that not all information is authentic, or not all information is of the same, perhaps of the same quality. And I think it'll also, if I'm sort of difficult to extrapolate from one night and etc. And it's, as I said, but I think it might give mainstream media outlets such as ourselves, such as Money Control, it might help us if we were to clearly stand out from the pack in terms of, in terms of the kind of information we put out. Having said that, yes, there have been obviously. There's obviously the Karachi port attack, which obviously has not happened.
Correct.
There is still confusion about jets being shot down and pilots being captured, which both the sides have made. There's been absolutely no confirmation on that. Some of the stuff which even is quite easy to, if you are an experienced observer, it's quite easy to make out what is plausible and what is like. You've got to apply your common sense. But yes, I've also seen actually very sophisticated deep fakes on Twitter.
Absolutely.
I don't want to describe them.
In the age of AI.
But I actually asked other people. In fact, it was last night. I called up other person, messaged him and asked him, and I said it to him, and I asked him that is this authentic? So he said it looks like a deep fake, but he wasn't sure. So there is stuff going out there which is, but ultimately what I would say though, the one line answer is that use your common sense. Use your common sense. Wait for official reactions. Ultimately, the government of India will come up with official reactions. rely on credible news sources,
Sure.
and you have to make. I mean, even if a deep fake looks authentic, is the information in the deep fake really authentic? I mean, that you've got to use your your sort of cognitive abilities, as it
Sure.
were. There is no. It's an art. It's not a science. There's no easy answer to this. But yeah, I mean,
There's no easy answer. It's just, yeah, you got to be careful in the age of social media and AI.
Absolutely.
And only
we've got to be
look
careful
at,
about also what we tweet or
confirmation coming in
retweet
from the
and-
government.
Yeah, I think so.
Sure. Bodhi, with that, we are running out of time. And of course, all eyes will be on the MEA briefing that's slated for 5:30 p.m. That will give us clarity as to what's true and what's not. So we will be waiting for that. But with that, we are completely timed out. Thank you, Bodhi, for joining in this evening and putting things into perspective. But yeah, I think we have run out of time completely. Thank you. It has been a tough week, both on the border front, even for the markets. We have snapped out of a 3-week gaining streak. But let's hope there is some bit of de-escalation over the weekend and we can focus in on fundamentals, earnings and the likes, and the market can also get back on its feet come Monday. Thank you to our viewers for watching. But before we sign out, thoughts and prayers with the brave men and women who are fighting, of the armed forces who are valiantly defending our nation's sovereignty, even ensuring the citizens' safety, and of course, we also stand in solidarity with all those people who are along the line of control. Thanks a lot for watching. Stay tuned to Money Control for all your other news and updates.